Maybe I've developed it a bit over the years, but definitely been a running theme for me through my 20s is, I think about the future and I live in the now. And to expand on that a little bit more, I mean, every decision I make is analytical on, whether it's a cup of coffee or a vacation or buying a new toy or whatever. I'm thinking about, how much joy is this bringing me today versus what it could cost me in the future. And the second part of that is live in the now. I mean, I do really enjoy what I'm doing. I enjoy pretty much every day. I mean, there's always, the odd rough day here or there, but I mean, my outlook on life, I enjoy when I'm at work. I look forward to the work week. I look forward to the weekends. I look forward to our holidays.
Welcome, millionaires and future millionaires. You're listening to the Millionaires Unveiled podcast, a show where you'll hear the stories and interviews of everyday millionaires. We'll unveil their decisions, their strategies, and their portfolio allocation. Now to your host, Jace Mattinson.
Welcome back to another episode of the Millionaires Unveiled podcast. This is episode number 289. Stace, how's it going?
Going well over here.
So we were talking, we just wrapped up Easter yesterday. So hope everyone had a good Easter yesterday. And I decided to dig in a little bit on the economics of Easter. It's pretty mind-blowing, actually. I had no idea how much, we as a country spend on this holiday. So the big figure is we basically go through 180 million Easter eggs, which is insane. 83% of families in America participate in the Easter egg hunt. And I guess we were part of that because we did one for our family, but we also took our kids to an Easter egg hunt. I got a text from Stace on Friday night that there was this helicopter drop of Easter eggs. It was like 80,000 eggs. I'm like, what? This seems like a joke, like some prank, right? Sure enough, we showed up and they were dropping 80,000 plus Easter eggs from helicopter, which was absolutely insane. And so I guess I thought 80,000 was a lot, but when you think about 180 million eggs every year, that is absolutely crazy. The other startling, I don't know if it's startling, but the crazy fact about Easter is the average family spends about $170 on Easter between food and gifts and eggs and all sorts of stuff. So actually, sorry, the average person who celebrates Easter spends $170. So I guess with a family of four, I'm assuming this is, I guess with a family of four, you're spending what, $680? That seems insane to me. But
under budget right here.
Yeah, no kidding. The kids had a great time though. You just need to hide a few plastic eggs and they're good to go. Like you don't even have to give them anything. But anyway, pretty wild. I think the other interesting fact, hun, 81% of parents steal their candy from their children's. Did you steal any candy from our kids?
I did actually tonight. I
stole a little bit too.
I was looking for a Twix, but the only Twix I saw was the Twix egg, and I only gave the kids one of those, so I thought I'd get found out. So it was a Hershey's Nugget, which was not as good as the Twix egg would have been. So a little bit of remorse on my choice, but I was trying to work quickly under pressure.
Yeah. Well, at any rate, maybe Jimmy Kimmel will start doing a Easter egg or Easter candy prank instead of just Halloween. This is another interesting fact. I don't know if we didn't do any chocolate bunnies this year, but 78%.
I did, actually.
Oh, you did?
I did too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, one like mini Lent chocolate bunny. I had to do Lent because it's my favorite. And there came 5 in a pack, and we have 3 kids. So the leftovers obviously needed to be high quality for me personally.
Let me throw this out to you. So 78% of Americans eat what first of the bunny?
I feel like the ears are a safe choice.
Yep. 78% eat the ears first. 11% eat the tail. And 11% eat the feet. So,
if this were a multiple choice exam, I am knocking it out of the park, I must say.
Oh man, good times. Anyway, I hope everybody had a great Easter. We got a great show today. We have got Kyle. He's got a net worth of $1 million. He's 29 years old, so one of our younger millionaires. He's got his own business in the heavy equipment space and does a little bit of farming as well. And it's split between cash, home equity, his business, and retirement accounts. So a great interview with with Kyle, especially for how much success he's had at such a young age and just the mindset that he's been able to develop. And it's going to be a great interview. I'm super stoked for this one. So last week we had Lane. He had a net worth of 10 million plus. About 90% of that was in real estate. He started his career as a civil industrial engineer and then started buying rental properties in 2009. So go check out that. It's episode number 288. If you'd like to be on the show, reach out to us, millionairesunveiled@gmail.com. Always looking for new guests. If you haven't heard your story, please reach out. I know there's several professions that I don't think we've had. I don't know. There's a bunch of things I can think of that, I guess, professions that all sorts of different medical we haven't had on, all sorts of different, I guess legal. We've had a couple, but not as many as I probably would have expected, depending on what kind of law is practiced. And, some of those that people have to take on, a lot more schooling and student debt. We just haven't, at least definitely not lately either. I don't know where they're at. Where are they hiding? We got to get some of them on the show. Also, if you want to ask a millionaire question, we've got a speak pipe on our website, and you can record that on there, or obviously you can just reach out, send us an email, millionairesunveiled@gmail.com. As always, please leave a rating and review. Y'all have done a phenomenal job on Spotify. I don't know where it's come from. I don't know if it's a Joe Rogan effect or what, but Spotify has taken off the last couple weeks. So appreciate those that are, reviewing or listening there. I don't know what's happening, but yeah, we got one from, actually, I'm not even sure how to pronounce it. $7, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, said, look forward to new episodes released weekly. I've been listening for over a year now, and I've listened to almost every episode back to 2019. Plan to listen to them all. So trying to get to 1,000 ratings by the end of the year on iTunes. So without any further delay, let's get into the interview with Kyle.
Kyle, do you want to give us a little about your background and what you're up to now?
Sure, yeah, I can do that. I'm a 29-year-old Canadian farm boy. I've got a wife and an 18-month-old daughter, and we're living and farming in Western Canada. So I guess I can give you a little history of kind of my working life, how I got to where I'm at and what I'm doing now. Like I said, I grew up on the farm, Canadian farm kid. I learned how to do a pile of stuff. I learned how to operate equipment at 8 or 9 years old, learned how to fix stuff, get my hands dirty, that kind of thing. So that was a really good way to grow up. And then as soon as I got my driver's license when I was 16 and I could get a job and get to and from work, I started a job at the local lumber yard, loading people's trailers and loading trucks. Simple work, but it was tons of fun. I really enjoyed it. I was making $10 an hour, working 4-hour shifts after school or whatever, so $40 a few times a week, and just started socking that away and saving it. I was probably saving 80% of what I was making at that time, if not more. And I was hanging out with a friend one time, and he took me down into his room, and he pulled out a wad of cash, and he showed me it was like $300 or $400. I mean, it wasn't a significant amount of money, but he told me it's all tips from delivering pizzas, and I was just blown away. He said, and that's on top of what I'm making, an hour, which was more than I was making an hour. So I immediately applied to a few, pizza places and got a delivery driver job and started doing that, working for tips. And I was making $25 an hour, $25 to $30 an hour through high school and into college between my wages and tips, which was really, really awesome. And I just saved a ton of it. I living at home with mom and dad, and I didn't really have any major expenses. So saved and saved and saved. And then after high school, I took a 2-year degree or a 2-year program at a local technology institute. And that was good. It wasn't my favorite thing. I don't know if it was the best path for me, but everybody told me go to school and get yourself some paperwork that I think was really important for my parents' generation. So I did that, and it was okay. It was an experience anyways. I definitely got something out of it. It didn't cost me a whole bunch. Mom and dad paid for my first year, so that was covered. And then I applied for a ton of scholarships for my second year, and I got 2 or 3 of them. I actually made more in scholarships than what I spent on the school year, which was pretty cool. I think I came out a couple $1,000s ahead on that one. And same thing, living at home, working all through college and saving money. And after that, I kind of putzed around for a little bit, looked for stuff to do, and kind of through a friend of a friend, I got hired onto this corporate position, oil field work. It was a local testing facility for pipeline equipment. And it was a really, really cool job, and I was super excited about that path and where that was going. And 3 months into that, they called me into the office and said, we're going to end your probationary period today. We don't want you to stay on with us. And they didn't give me any reasons or ifs or whys or anything like that. They just gave me a little bit of a severance check and sent me on my way. So that was a bit of a flip upside down for me. Kind of everything was going to plan, just how I expected it to go. And somebody told me that I wasn't allowed to go there anymore. So going on from that, I kind of decided that was it for me, working for somebody else and building somebody else's dream. I was going to figure out how to do it on my own and be my own boss. So from there, I just kind of took on all kinds of stuff. In my early 20s, I started a drone sales and service business for agricultural drones. I was selling agricultural fertilizers and supplies. I was driving truck for a fella at a feedlot and helping on the farm, and then doing whatever else I could find whatever else I could find on the side, just to keep myself busy. I was working tons and tons of hours. I mean, playing a little bit on the sides, but yeah, I definitely took advantage of the time where I didn't have any, other major responsibilities or anything. I was still living at home, and, I kept saving money. And then when the feedlot manager I was working with moved away, he offered the portion of the business that he was up for sale for us to buy, which was the trucking and the corral cleaning and stuff. So I'd saved about $50,000 by that time, and I used that cash to get myself started with that business. I bought a couple of trucks and trailers and started doing some custom farming work. And it didn't take me long to figure out, if I could make profit of $300 on one truck and $600 a day on two trucks. And, if I get 3 or 4 trucks, and I could make $900 or $1,200 a day, and I could really multiply my income that way. So that led to me purchasing more equipment, more trucks and trailers, and eventually more heavy equipment to fit the need for whatever I was doing, and just multiplying my income that way. And that worked me into generating a whole bunch more, I think, than I could have just done working hourly by myself. So that kind of takes me to where I'm at today. I'm still doing that, and that's a good little business for us, and we're enjoying that. It's lots of work, it's lots of hours, but it's fulfilling, and I enjoy it. I do I enjoy the work that I do for sure. It's dirty. It's not always pretty, but it's up my alley. It's something I enjoy for sure.
Good for you. So what is your net worth today?
We just, we did our net worth calculation in November, and we just crossed the $1 million mark. I calculated it out, depending on what all the equipment's valued at, I calculated it to be about $1,025,000 or something like that. So we'll call it $1 million.
Nice. Doing the $1 million holler. I like it.
Holler.
Nice. So what's the breakup of the $1 million?
Yeah, so for the $1 million, about $400K is in equipment. I tried to evaluate all that pretty conservatively. With the market the last couple of years, the equipment prices, especially for used stuff, just with the COVID and the production slowdown on new equipment, lots of the values have held pretty well on stuff that normally depreciates. So that's been kind of nice. Some of it's gone up in value, in fact, based on looking around for what other stuff's going for. I've got $200,000 in long-term investments, all registered stuff, similar to what you guys would have for like IRAs. We have tax-free savings account and registered retirement savings accounts up here. We've got about $100,000 equity in our home, and then about $300K in cash that I've moved into some high-interest savings accounts that now that the interest rates are a little bit more reasonable, that I plan to use that to pay off the house when our mortgage term comes up in 12 months or so here. So that's where it is.
And when you say you're going to use that to pay off the house, are you on a short-term loan that you're going to have to either refinance or pay off, or what does that entail?
Yeah, so when we signed up for the mortgage, it was a 25-year amortization and a 55-month term that we'll renegotiate after 55 months. So that'll be coming up in the first part of next year.
And you plan on just paying off the house then at that point?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if the interest rates drop back down to where they are, we might consider keeping a chunk of that money in investments. But, with 6 or 7 or who knows how high the interest rates are going to get here, they seem to be still climbing. We have the cash around to pay it off, so we don't have to worry about it if the interest rates are too high. Or, at 6%, I'm going to pay it off. I'm not making anything. I haven't been making that much in investments in the last couple of years, so I'd prefer not to have the risk. I know it's not something that a lot of the millionaires do. Like listening to the show, lots of people will carry the mortgage at low interest rates and invest in other stuff. But I think of it as, if I had the house paid off, I'd never take out a home equity line on it to go invest in something else. So in essence, it's the same thing by not paying it off and investing it somewhere else. I'd prefer to have it gone, and then, that's not money that I'm going to spend on a toy or something else.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about the psychology of a mortgage that you bring up, where if you had it paid off, you wouldn't go and borrow against it today to have the cash in the bank that you have now, but you're in that position and you want to go take that cash and essentially pay it off. Why not just do it now instead of in a year from now?
Yeah, so I mean, in a year from now, like if the interest rates are going to be back down at 1.5% or 2%, I mean, it might be beneficial enough for me to keep it invested somewhere else. I've just stuck it in my interest rate's on at like 2.7, and the high interest savings account is like 4.25 or something right now. So even after I pay taxes on that, I'm not really losing any money. At least I have the option when the time comes up to go either direction with it. I can make a decision in the future, knowing more 12 months from now than what I know now.
How much do you decide to reinvest in your business versus maybe use for other things or other investments?
Yeah, so I mean, at the start of the business, obviously everything was going back into it, and I actually lived at home for the first few years that I was doing it and filling up my mom and dad's yard with all the equipment. They were super happy about that. But now I've pretty much got everything that I need to do the job. Every now and then something will come up where I could use a different piece of equipment or another something to do a different kind of job. So I keep quite a bit of cash around available for that, or funds accessible to do that. But I'm definitely, in the last year or two, I've been starting to peel off a little bit of the money and enjoy some of it as income, and play with a little bit of it too. I've been a pretty frugal saver, for the majority of my 20s. So just in the last couple of years, I'm starting to get into a few more expensive hobbies and trying to enjoy some of my time that way.
What expensive hobbies are we speaking about?
So my big one right now, I have a couple local farmers that have some airplanes, and they took me for a ride and they got me hooked. So I got my pilot's license, and I've been enjoying that and building some time and developing that skill. And then in the winter, I like to go to the hills a little bit and do some mountain snowmobiling and stuff like that, which is really cool. If the listeners, if you've never done that, you have a chance to take this little thing up to the top of the mountain where there's 8 feet of snow and it's just bottomless, and you can go anywhere. It's such a cool experience. We try and get out a couple times a year and do that as well.
Do you have a plane, or are you leasing a plane, using your friend's planes?
Yeah, so for now I'm just renting. One of my goals is to get to a point where I feel like I can afford a plane and get into something. I'm probably close to that point where I could do it. I still feel like it's a little bit too parasitic on my income and my wealth building to afford one right now. Like the economics of airplanes are interesting because the planes themselves don't lose value, but it's your annual operating costs that really kill you. Your hangar is probably going to be $300 or $400 a month, and your insurance and annuals. Like they say, I don't know what the costs are in the States, but they say up here, you're $10,000 a year into it before you turn the key, and then it's going to be another $30 or $40 an hour cost for you to fly it. on top of that, depending on what you're flying. So the cost of the airplane doesn't really scare me, but the operating costs. And if I could, find a good partner or two to get in on something and split those costs up, then that's probably something that would make it a little bit more appealing for me to jump in. I'd be ready for that now, probably. For me to do it on my own right now, I just feel like it's just a little bit too parasitic on some of my other goals, some of my net worth building goals.
Is there a number you feel like you'd feel comfortable pulling the trigger on?
I don't know. I feel like we're almost there. It's more of a feeling for me than a number, I guess. That's probably not really good math, but 5 years ago, I started considering the option of buying a plane, and I felt like there's no way I could do it right now. It would be such a burden on my finances, but I'm getting to the point now where it feels like, if I did it, it wouldn't kill me. I could probably afford it, but I think it would slow me down too much and where I want to get. So, and I think it's a cash flow thing too. So where I'm getting, maybe I have another year or two with comfortable income or similar income and cash flow to what I've been having, where I'm not buying any new equipment or expanding the business too much more, where I'll feel comfortable that that's a step I can take and get into something. And like I said, they don't really lose value. Most of them are 40 or 50 years old, and they're selling for more than they sold out of the factory. So I guess once I feel like I can afford it, the risk to buy it is pretty low. You can always sell it again if you got caught. So as soon as I feel like I can afford the monthly bills.
You know what? I feel like I've heard this song before. I think that Jace thought he was going to buy a Tesla at a certain mark, and now he says he still doesn't feel like he can buy a Tesla. And the mark keeps moving. So I've heard this before. So you said you have some other net worth goals in mind. So what are those?
Yeah, so my original net worth goal was $1 million by 30. So we did that a year early. And then originally I'd wanted to be financially retired by 35. And I think I'm stretching that to 40, just because I feel like I want to start, now that we've got the kids going and I'm really enjoying some of the hobbies and stuff. I'm just going to slow down on that stuff a little bit. There's no race to get there by 40. There's lots of life to live after that. There's no point working my first 20 years or my first 40 years away and then trying to enjoy it all at the end. I'm just deciding to pace myself a little bit more. But financial retirement by 40, I think, is a reasonable goal for me.
And what does financial retirement look like for you? Or sound like, or what are you envisioning there?
Yeah, so the way I see it now, I mean, with $1 million net worth, I could pay myself $100,000 a year if I wanted to run it down to zero with no growth, and I'd be fine for 10 years. So I think probably $3 million outside of our personal residence paid off would be a good enough net worth. That's 30 years at $100,000, assuming no growth. And I mean, you guys interview millionaires all the time. You know that $3 million doesn't often just sit dormant. Most guys are growing that in one way or another. So that would be, I'm sure, a very comfortable number to be sitting at. And
I might have missed this at the beginning, but do you have other employees? Are you working by yourself, or do you have another partner in your company?
Yeah, so just my wife and I owning the business. We do employ 5 or 6 people throughout the year to operate the equipment. So we're operating, I can operate 4 or 5 pieces of equipment in a day and multiply my income that way.
So retirement for you probably looks like maintaining the business, or would it be selling the business at that point?
Yeah, probably just changing business. I hope to take over a chunk of the farm one day. Most of us farmers don't quit till we're not able to physically do it anymore by any means. So I'll probably just rework into something else. I don't think I'll do this forever, but for now I'm definitely happy doing it. I don't have a retirement age or a retirement age goal when I want to be done. I get a lot of joy and fulfillment out of working. So I'll probably work until I can't anymore to some capacity. It'll be maybe more, it might be different what I'm doing, especially as, my body gets older and operating equipment can be hard on the body. So as I get older, I'll maybe move more into management or maybe a whole different area altogether. It's really hard to say. I like to outlook 5 or 10 years, but at the same time, I'm happy to kind of go with the flow and take the opportunities that present themselves to me. And I find that you never really know where you end up, and you can plan all you want, but do some macro planning. And other than that, I just kind of take things as they come.
I've heard you say we a lot throughout this interview process. So what I'm hearing I'm feeling this is your family. What kind of role is your family playing for you throughout this financial journey?
Yeah, so we have a bit more of a traditional family structure. So I am the sole. I mean, the wife is getting into a little bit of the office work and doing some of that stuff at home, but mostly, caretaking, taking care of the family, taking care of the house, making sure that it's that we're good on that front, and hopefully I'm able to keep generating enough income so she can stay home and raise our kids.
And are you involving your kids at all in your business? Do they help with anything along the way?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. My daughter's only 18 months, so she's not quite to the helping stage yet, but that's, I think, one of the coolest things that I got. One of the coolest benefits that I got growing up was being a kid on the farm, because you get so much hands-on knowledge and you can really go to work with dad and see what it's about, what going to work is all about. That's, growing up, I learned a ton of stuff. I kind of mentioned at the start there that, I learned a ton of skills from growing up on the farm, but I also learned that there's a lot more than 8 hours in a day to get stuff done. It doesn't necessarily have to be a tedious, hardworking day, but if you're busy, you can be busy from the time that you wake up in the morning and the time till the time that you go to bed, and productive that whole time in some fashion or another.
She's not helpful at 18 months. That is the perfect age for pulling out Tupperware and spilling it all over the floor while your wife is cooking.
Well, if you put it that way, she's a professional at what she does.
Aren't they all? So, yeah. And are you also farming, or just renting out, or having your equipment working?
Yeah, no, I do help on the farm when I can. I don't have a lot of personal investment in the farm yet of my own stuff. Hopefully going to be getting more into that in the next few years, but I've just really been focusing on building my own income generation and kind of getting myself a start, and then staying involved there where I can to help out. And like most of that work I do on the farm is for no pay. It's just to be a part of it.
Well, that's great. It's super hard work on the farm. I've done a lot of farm tours myself, being involved in nutrition and agriculture. So I really respect everyone who's working to feed our nations. So thanks for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Getting to this $3 million-ish, house paid for by the time you're 40, what does your asset allocation look like the way that you envision it at that point?
Yeah, so definitely, I mean, we've got like 40% of our asset allocation and equipment right now, and that's all stuff that's going down in value. So long term, I mean, that's not a great play. I mean, the way I see it, I'm so early in the process that it's okay for me to have that there. I basically, bought myself a job. But as we get further into it, I definitely would like to diversify into some other stuff. I've started kind of chatting around with some friends that are in real estate and maybe seeing what that could look like. I don't have a lot of desire to landlord or renovate or flip houses or anything like that. So it'd have to be a little bit more of a distant approach or a group approach or something in that matter. But I think I'd like to get into that. I'm not sure how the markets are going to go in the next couple of years, but I don't know if it's the time to get in right now. But definitely started looking and chatting about that. Yeah, some of the mutual funds and the investments have been good. That money's, a step away, so it's a little bit harder to spend, and it does grow a little bit for me. So I'll probably move stuff over into there, possibly purchase some farmland and get into more of the farm equipment as those opportunities come up, if they do come up.
Do your friends and family know of your wealth and success at such a young age?
Not too many. I told my parents. So they're aware, and one friend who lives 800 kilometers away or 400 miles away, so he's a little bit more removed. But I've kind of been breaking into and thinking about doing some financial coaching or teaching for younger folks, high school or college age students. I think that's something I'd love to get into one day, maybe 5 years from now. Maybe I start on it soon. Something I've kind of been cooking up. So that's one direction we might go.
Do you plan to continue to contribute to the TFSA going forward?
Yeah, definitely. So our TFSAs are are limited, so much a year. So we max out mine and my wife's every year to the maximum amount, and we allocate those in a little bit more of an aggressive investment. So that hurt us a bit in 2021. But theoretically, I mean, the more aggressive growth being not taxed is where we want that. And then we have our RRSPs, our Registered Retirement Savings Plan, which is our pre-tax investments in a little bit more conservative funds.
When you were dating and early in marriage, what were the financial conversations like between you and your wife?
Yeah, that's a great question. We actually come from very different financial backgrounds. Money was something that we talked a fair amount about in our house, especially with the farming and stuff. We got a pretty good handle on economics and markets and how things work, buying and selling, and the value of a dollar. And my wife came from the city, and her family didn't talk too much about finances and whatnot. So lots of it was hopefully me teaching, not preaching, for some of our stuff. And my wife's really come a long way in learning kind of the methods and the strategy that I've been using, or now we've been using, to grow. And she's really, now that she's starting to see the results of what we're doing, she's really on board, and she's getting more and more interested and invested in how some of this part works. Originally, I pretty well did all of that. And just in the last, I'd say, year or so, she's really asking a lot more questions and getting a better grasp on it. So through our dating, it was more, I tried really hard not to be overbearing on the stuff. She had some student loans coming into our relationship, so I wanted to, she was still going to school when we first started dating. So I just tried to start with trying to get her to understand, really what those loans were costing and how much money that was and how long it was going to take it off. How long it was going to take to pay it off. And we started with that kind of stuff. And now that we're married, I mean, we have totally shared expenses, everything's together. And yeah, it's been good that way. It's just been a growing thing. Definitely my strength. She's really come a long way in that. So that's cool.
I've heard this tune before.
Are you the Dave Ramsey nerd in your relationship?
Did I get the Dave Ramsey book our first Christmas together? I sure did.
We've come a long
place to start.
Yeah, we've come a long way from those days. But yeah, it's kind of funny hearing you talk about this a little bit, because as my wife mentioned, earlier, about the fact that I had this, I'll buy a Tesla when, and then I got to that point and far surpassed that point. I still feel like I can't buy that Tesla yet. Just not ready to write that check just yet. But it's funny to hear you describe these things, as I feel like this is kind of to some degree how our relationship is unfolded as it relates to finances as well. So it's kind of interesting. How did you gain an interest in personal finance?
Man, that's a good question. When I remember working in the shop when I was young, and Dad would have the Dave Ramsey show on, and he'd say, "Man, you should listen to this guy. He's got some really good stuff to say." And I definitely did not for a long time. And then I can't remember at what point, but I started listening to the Dave Ramsey stuff, and it just kind of took off for me a little bit at that point. I mean, I always had a bit more of an interest in the economic side. I remember when I was young, I don't know if you guys have 4-H in the States. We have a 4-H program here, which is kind of agricultural training for kids. So you can raise a steer, or you can do horse 4-H or whatever. And I really wanted to do the steer 4-H, and my parents said, like, no, we're not going to put you in it because you just want to do it for the money, because somebody's going to give you a cow for next to nothing, and you're not going to pay for the feed, and you're going to sell it for a ridiculous price because you're going to brush it and comb it and whatever. And I really wanted to do that, and Mom said, no, I don't think that's a good idea, because you just want to do it for the money. But now I think if we were in that position again, I think she'd be okay with it, because that's how I see the world. I maybe always have kind of dollars and cents in terms of what's valuable and what's not. I mean, every time I make a decision, it's what's the value of this? I hardly ever go out to the movie theater because I can do the same thing at home for the fraction of the, such a small fraction of the cost. Like everything to me is value. And I've just always seen the world that way.
Have you started any accounts for your daughter?
We have, yeah, actually, for when she was born, somebody gave us a $50 check with her name on it. So I was forced to start a bank account. But we did also, we have RESPs here, which would be similar to your 529s with a government match contribution up to like $2,500. So we've been maxing that out for her so far. So we'll max it out for her maybe until the next one comes, and then we'll max that out for them the next couple times, and they can have that grow. Mom and Dad had done that for us, and I had $3,000 or $4,000 by the time I got to college that I was able to use. It wasn't a pile, but it had doubled in the time that from when they put it in to when we got to use it. So hopefully whatever we invest for them starting now is going to do well for them over the next 18 years or so.
I think I see some steers in their future as well.
Yeah, there definitely might be. They're going to get the I don't know how much is good to talk about the money with your kids. I mean, all at an appropriate level, I guess, for their age. But they're definitely going to be getting the financial training as they grow, to some extent. Hopefully, I don't bugger them up.
No, I think that's good. Honestly, my parents never really talked about money. I remember asking my mom how expensive something was, and she would tell me more than your allowance. And so I really, my dad was a physician, and my parents just kind of, and he had some other side businesses going on as well. And he didn't really discuss money with us kids. And then my mom has always been a homemaker. We have 6 kids in our family. My oldest brother has special needs, and she never talked about money. And so I was kind of financially illiterate in a lot of ways. And so I wish that I would have been raised with a lot more intention in terms of teaching finance.
That's something, when we were quite young, Mom set us up with our bank accounts, probably 6 or 7 years old, like bank accounts that we could have access to. And anything that was extra, she said, well, if you want it, then you can go to your bank account and get the money out, and we'll come back and buy it. They gave us, an allowance, like $50 a month or something when we were growing up, and 9 times out of the 10, I would choose to just leave the money in the bank. We could see it grow, and we could see it pile up. And by the time I started working, I had $3,000 or $4,000 saved that I hadn't spent on candy and little plastic things. And I'm one of 4, and all 4 of us sort of have very similar mindset around money. All of us are pretty decent at saving. I mean, some of us are a little better than others, but for the most part, we all had pretty good control of our money. So that approach obviously worked. From anything extra. I mean, obviously we were well clothed and we were well fed, and we got a little bit of stuff at our birthday and Christmas. But if we wanted stuff in between, it wasn't just, Mom, I want it, and sure, we'll throw it in the cart. It was, okay, well, let's go to the bank and get some cash out, and then by the time you held that cash in your hand and looked to trade it for the thing, it's like, well, maybe I want to keep the cash instead. So I think that worked well for us.
So Kyle, let's wrap up with some rapid fire questions. What's the most expensive pair of shoes you've ever purchased?
Oh man. Well, I mean, work boots are a couple $100, but for shoes in high school, I probably spent $120 on a pair of fancy DC shoes.
What's the most expensive meal out that you've paid for?
I took our crew out for dinner for Christmas party this year. There was 5 of us, and that cost me about $600. So really not too bad. I told them to do their worst, and they took it easy on me. So that was nice. The wife and I have been out for some $200 meals for anniversaries and stuff. But other than that, we very seldom eat out.
What's your favorite thing to splurge on?
Well, definitely the airplane thing. I mean, I can blow $400 or $500 in a day pretty easy doing that. And sometimes it kills me to know that it's going, but the value to me is worth it. I think about it as the big picture and building and learning the skills. So, but you can definitely spend a lot of money in a hurry there.
What was a key lesson you learned from your childhood?
That's a good question. You know what? When we were walking out of the grocery stores or whatever, they always had those little twisty things outside, on the way out where you could put a quarter in and you get a little plastic thing. And every time we walked by, we'd shout at Mom that we wanted one. And she told us, no, they're just junk. You don't need that in the house. And after she told us enough times, we finally got it. And now I don't have any of that. I'm very careful about what I spend on stuff that I'm, only going to use once or never going to use at all. Or I'm very careful about the value of what I spend on.
What's been your favorite bucket list item that you've done so far?
Man, last summer I bought myself one of those paramotors. I don't know if you've ever seen one of them. They've got you strap the fan on your back and you have a paragliding wing and you run into the sky and fly away. And that's something when I saw it online, it's like, I have to do this. So I went out and got myself set up and trained and bought one. And I mean, that's a pretty cool bucket list item that I get to keep doing over and over again.
How expensive was that?
That cost me to get into it, I was a little bit under $20,000 with training and all the extras.
I'm sensing a theme that Kyle likes to get up in the air and fly.
That I do. I like to see things from the air, look down. Everything makes a lot more sense up there. Nobody can bug me.
You can watch over the farm. I get it. I got it.
It's crop checking right off.
Yep. Is there a bucket list experience that you're still looking forward to?
I keep telling myself I'm going to go skydiving. I think that's on everybody's bucket list item. And every time, compared to some of the money I spend on flying around, it's really not that much money, but I just can't bring myself to spend it.
That's funny. Luck, skill, or hard work? How would you rank them?
That's a really good question. I would say luck, 5 to 10%, maybe. Skills would be the 40, and 50% is just get up and go do it.
I've got one last one for you. When did you feel like you could afford moving out of your parents' house?
So, funny story. I really had no fire to get up and move. I was happy, I working on equipment. Dad has a nice heated shop at home, so I was comfortable. I go outside to work, and work was right there. And I haven't really thought about getting out and purchasing a house at all. And then one day Dad said, "Well, there's this house for sale on the market, and maybe we should go look at it." And I took that as a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And we went and looked at it, and that one didn't go. But I had an offer on a house within a month after that, so he knew what he was doing.
You got the eviction notice.
I did. I got a very subtle eviction notice.
And sorry, was this before or after this was before you were married?
Yes. Yeah. I moved out it was a year or two before we got married. I think it was a year before we got engaged. Once I had the house and everything lined up, then I felt like we could move on to the next step. So we weren't going to be moving into my parents' basement.
That's a good call.
What mistakes have you made along the way that you would caution others against? Man,
the biggest one that stands out to me, which isn't for everybody, but those 2 years I spent going to school, I think I am where I am because of what I did, so it's really hard to say, but I think the opportunity cost, like I'd mentioned, school didn't really cost me much out of pocket, but the opportunity cost for what I could have made in those really early years, from 18 to 20 years old, I probably lost about $80,000 worth of earning potential going to school that I could have grown, over the past 10 years, another 80,000, especially when back then, I only had 40 or 50 or whatever getting started. So that's not for everybody. Obviously, if you want to do something that's going to take school to get there, I think it's a really good option. But my parents just said, go to school and get paperwork because that's all that matters. And I don't know if it was an experience. It wasn't a total waste, but I don't know if that was maybe as valuable as what it cost me, what I could have been doing, learning how to do something else.
Last words of advice for somebody who's just starting out.
Man, that's my favorite question. If I could spend the whole thing talking about that, I would. If I could sit down with every 18 to 25-year-old, I have a list. So I'll just rattle off a few things. I think the biggest thing is just start. Like, don't wait for your parents or the government or your teachers or anybody to tell you what to do or how to get started or give you instructions. Like, just go start working on yourself and start saving money from your very first paycheck. Like, stick it away and pay yourself first. Huge mindset thing for me going through everything. Maybe I've developed it a bit over the years, but definitely been a running theme for me through my 20s is, I think about the future and I live in the now. And to expand on that a little bit more, I mean, every decision I make is analytical on, whether it's a cup of coffee or a vacation or buying a new toy or whatever. I'm thinking about, how much joy is this bringing me today versus what it could cost me in the future. And the second part of that is live in the now. I mean, I do really enjoy what I'm doing. I enjoy pretty much every day. I mean, there's always, the odd rough day here or there, but my outlook on life, I enjoy when I'm at work. I look forward to the work week. I look forward to the weekends. I look forward to our holidays. I think I have some friends that they can't wait to get away from work to go on this trip. And that's what all they're thinking about for months. You're always living in the future that way. Or the people that, I've got other friends that aren't thinking past Friday and don't have any outlook. And then everything's a surprise when it comes up, and it's a lot harder to live that way. So yeah, think about the future, but live in the now and enjoy what you're doing every day, because you only get to do it once. And it's short. Like, I found my 20s just flew by, and I'm sure 30s are going to be even faster and faster after that. Don't be afraid to start at the bottom for somebody who's just getting out of high school or whatever. Lots of my friends, it's like, oh, I don't want to do the sweeping the floor work. I don't want to do the basic jobs or whatever. I want to start here. And it's like, well, that's where you're going to find your opportunities. When you get out, don't be afraid to just go try stuff. Like I'd mentioned there, I was doing 4 or 5 things at a time, and one of those opportunities took off for me. So just go out and take all the opportunities that you practically can. And yeah, don't be afraid to start somewhere. I mean, you don't want to stay there, but don't be afraid to start at the bottom to get your foot in the door. Never do it for the money. And you're going into a job interview, you should never be thinking about what your employer can do for you. It's all about what you can do for them, and just do it because you enjoy it. Find something that you enjoy. I mean, I've done between lumberyard and pizza delivery driver and waiter and what I'm doing now. I mean, I've enjoyed all those things. Maybe that's just a personality thing, or maybe I've learned to enjoy it all. Never do it for the money. Do it because it's something you like and it's something you're passionate about, and the money will come if you do a good job. Never underestimate the value of your time. I think as a young person, your time is so plentiful. And, if you have $100,000 sitting in the bank, then spending 10 of them doesn't feel like anything to you. But, when you're 18 and your time feels plentiful, then to waste 6 or 8 hours a day, staring at the TV, playing video games, I mean, that's fine every once in a while. But if you're spending 20 or 30 hours a week, that time when you're young is so incredibly valuable. Like, really take advantage of the time when you don't have a lot of expenses and don't have a lot of responsibilities, and just save. Even if you don't know where that money's going yet, just save and have it ready for an opportunity if it presents itself. Because that's really what kind of slingshotted me along is I just waited with 50 grand in the bank. And when an opportunity came along, then I was ready to make it go. And then the last thing, just always be improving yourself. Like, I'm always working on something. That's what I love about the aviation thing. I mean, it's such a neat skill, and just, from one airplane to the next, you can learn this, to the paramotor, to whatever. I mean, there's so many different aspects of that. You can always be learning. Guys in that field, they're learning till they're done with that. And I guess I'd make one more. Always have I've always lived with a lifestyle as a percentage of my income. So if I'm making, 50 grand a year, I thought, well, somebody can live on 30. So I'll live on 30. I'll live like I make 30, and I'll save the extra 20. And now that my income has grown, I still live like I make, 60% of my income, and I save the rest. So, and it's a very comfortable life that way. And we never have to worry about being tight. Like, I've never been paycheck to paycheck. I don't know what that's like. So just operate out ahead and live like the common saying goes, live on less than you make. I mean, it's really not what you make, it's what you spend. Like, I know it's cliche, but it's cliche it's true. It is really true. Just live on less than you make.
Awesome. That's Kyle with a net worth of $1 million. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. This has been fun.
Thanks for listening to the Millionaires Unveiled podcast with Jace Mattinson. For more stories, investment opportunities, and information, check out our website, millionairesunveiled.com. See you next time when you'll hear from another everyday millionaire.